All right, cool guys. So wanted to show you guys something very interesting that I just recently learned about. You know, whenever you're looking at cars, specifically tuner cars, in my case, the Civic Type R, one mod that a lot of people like to do is a short shifter upgrade. But I wanted to show you something that's different because this is a shift knob that actually reduces the height of your shifter, but also it shortens the throw of your shifter. Now, I'm kind of curious if this is actually gonna work. Now, I'm sure that this will lower the height of it, but shortening the throw, how the heck will that work? I'm not really sure. I also got a set of shifter bushings that we're gonna be putting in, shifter cable bushings. And all of this is from Acuity. The shift knob is called the Acuity Poco. I'll make sure to throw links down in the description in case this is something you wanna check out and check the prices of. Definitely probably one of the cheapest and sexiest short shifter mods you could ever do. If it's effective or not, that's something that we're actually gonna have to find out. Now, the way that this works is the inside of the threading of the shifter is countersunk and it is sunk a lot deeper. They claim this shifter is only about 3 or 4 millimeters taller than the actual threads on your shifter. So if you took your shift knob off and you can see how low it is with the threads, they claim that this is only 3 or 4 millimeters taller. They also claim that it's going to shorten the throw by 5 to 10%. Before we can actually figure out if this is going to work, let's go install it real quick. Let's drive it around, see how it feels. Then I'm going to show you the math behind why this may or may not work. All right, so before we get this going and get it installed, I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what the shifter throw looks like and the shifter height relative to like the dash right here. So this is what it looks like. I'll do it with my left hand. So the shifter actually isn't bad in the Civic Type R, but I wanted to give you that kind of comparison. So when we install the shift, we can probably hear the difference or feel the difference. Now, in order to get this shifter off, we have to pull down on the shift boot, kind of like this. There you go, just like that. Then we're gonna take a 14 millimeter wrench. We're gonna pry that loose like this. And now once you get it pretty loose, you can just twist it right here. All right, there's our stock shift knob. And then we're gonna take off this portion too. So we're gonna take off the nut as well. Now, once we get to that point, because we have to replace this shifter collar, we need to get to the inside of the shift boot. And in order to get inside the shift boot, we gotta pull this panel off. So to do that, we're gonna use these little panel poppers right here that I got from Acuity. And we're gonna just start working our way through, move our way up this seam, and then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So now that we got the trim pieces off, now we have 2 Phillips head screws on either side. We're just gonna use a Phillips head screwdriver and we're gonna unscrew those. I'm gonna put these right here in my cup holder so I don't lose them. So now we're gonna pry up under the front of this bezel right here. We're gonna be careful because we do have connectors that are behind these buttons right here. So we're just gonna pry up, just like that. And then right here, you can see your connectors. Closest to the front of the car right here is your little clip that you depress. There's also a third connector over on the driver's side for our brake hold. And now this is off. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip this inside out and you're gonna notice a white zip tie on it. And that's what we gotta clip off and we're gonna replace with this shift boot collar. And we're gonna very carefully clip this without cutting into the shifter boot itself. So I'm actually gonna clip on where this zip tie actually connects. So now we can pull this out just like so. And I'm gonna fold this back down right here. This will come out and you wanna fold it back in. And then we can actually just install that right here. Now we can flip it back inside out. So I'm gonna take one of their zip ties that they provide and I'm gonna stick it through like this. Just gonna get it started right here and I'm just gonna place it around. So making sure that our fabric is even all the way around. Now I'm gonna just go ahead and I'm gonna tighten down the zip tie. And then we're gonna clip off the excess. Just gonna clip it off. All right, now we can reattach everything. Before we put our trim pieces back on, I wanna just thread this on. And the cool thing about this is because it doesn't have the numbers on it to indicate what gear, you don't gotta worry about what orientation it's in. So once it's locked on, we can take our shift boot collar and just pop it up like that. It actually does feel shorter. So up here, you'll see how much distance it covers. And down here towards the bottom, it doesn't cover as much. And so it actually does shorten the throw. I'm actually quite surprised. Okay, let's get the rest of this reinstalled. So you just put that piece back on and you push it in kind of down and forwards, and it pops right back into place. So the cool thing about this kit too is they do include 3 different zip ties. I actually edited it out, but on the first zip tie, I didn't zip tie it quite high enough on the shift collar. So I cut that one off and then I used the second one. But you still have a third one left if you do screw even that one up. So that's kind of cool to know. Now for these shifter bushings, I'm actually not going to show you guys how to install this. Not because I don't want to, just because it's actually quite a process to install these. And not only that, but Acuity, AKA Powin, has an amazing video on how you install these. I don't think I can do any better than that video, but essentially you got to take out your intake, you got to take out your intercooler charge pipe, you got to take out your battery. There's a lot of stuff you got to take out. Now I am going to install these and we're going to look at a before and after of how the shifter looks and feels in regards to its throw. But if you guys want to watch the installation video, I'll link to his video down below. And through the power of editing, these are already installed now. Back up top. All right, cool. So the Poco shifter, got it installed. It was pretty easy. The only thing that's kind of a pain in the butt is you do got to yank out the trim in order to get underneath it so you can zip tie the shift boot to the new shifter collar. Now I will say most shift knobs that are aftermarket don't come with a shift collar. This one does, and for the price of it, which was less than $100, you get a collar, you get a shift knob, and you get 3 different zip ties in case you screw one of them up. I actually screwed one of them up. Thankfully I had 2 more zip ties. I was able to get the collar zip tied correctly. Let's talk about the pros and the cons to the shift knob. Whenever I do these reviews, I really try to avoid any type of bias when a company sends me a product. If you guys aren't aware of this, go watch my main channel, which is Tactical Toolbox. I've been doing this for about 3 years with that channel. Companies send me $4,000 firearms, and I will still tell people the negatives about it because getting a free product, that's not a form of payment in my personal opinion. In my opinion, that's just the cost of doing business. So if it sucks, I tell people about it, regardless if it's free or not. With that being said, I wanted to look at a couple of things. Number 1, does it actually reduce the height of the shift knob? Yes. So it definitely delivers on that. Does it reduce the shift throw by 5 or 10%? I would say yes, but that's kind of hard for me to measure. If you look at the B-roll footage, it's definitely shorter and it definitely has a shorter throw. And the way that works is with the angles. Let me draw it in my handy dandy notebook for you. So let's pretend that this is our shift knob. Right here is the taller one, right here is the shorter one. This right here is first gear, and let's pretend this is second gear. With the taller one, you can see that if we moved it all the way to second gear, that line in between it is pretty long. If you just shorten the length of this, it actually goes to here. Now we have a shorter line. And the way that those short shifter adapters work is they typically extend the bottom of the shifter so that you get more leverage on it. Well, instead of extending the bottom, they just shorten the top. It's the same principle, it's just done in an opposite fashion. So does it legitimately shorten the shifts? Yes, absolutely. Follows through with what they say they're gonna do. Now let's talk about some of the cons of this shift knob. Number 1, there's no gear patterns on the shifter. Shared this on the Torq Toolbox Facebook page. If you're on there, I'll throw a link below so you can go over there and follow that page. I like to share a lot of deals over there usually. But when I shared this shifter over there was 2 things that most people didn't like about this shifter. Number 1 was they wanted an actual gear patterning on the shift knob. For me, I think it looks cleaner without it, but some people may disagree. Another thing that I think about with that is you don't really need it because your Civic Type R is going to show you which gear you're in. And maybe, I believe the Civic SIs or any other 10th gen Civic, maybe they do the same thing. I haven't driven them, but I don't know. But on the dash, it says you're in gear 4, you're in gear 5. If I'm driving, I would rather just look at my dash to know what gear I'm in than at my shifter. So to me, that's really a non-issue. And now the second gripe is that it's metal and it's gonna burn or freeze the crap out of your hand in extreme weather. And that's the case with the stock shift knob. So for me, it doesn't really matter. Now, Acuity does make an insulated shift knob, which I'll throw a link to down below. So if you do live in a very hot state or a very cold state, it's made of some kind of nylon, I believe. It protects your hands, which I will be needing one in the summertime here in Arizona. It gets 115 degrees outside. Yes, shifters will burn the crap out of your hand. One way I've typically done it is I take a sock and I cut it and I just put it over the shifter and put a rubber band around it, and then I can drive all summer. Then when summer's over, I yank it out. That's just what I've done for the past few years with my other cars. It works really well. But it would be cool if Acuity did come out with an insulated version of the Poco. Now let's talk about the shifter cable bushings. Holy cow, that was a bear. But it's gonna take you about an hour, at least it did me, because I'd never taken the Type R completely apart before. It took about an hour to get them installed. The biggest problem I ran into was I accidentally lost one of my shifter cable retainer clips. I thought that it landed on the underside pan. If you look at the under the Civic Type R, it's all sealed up. I pulled that down, I couldn't find it. So I'm definitely gonna need to get this up on the lift and see if I can find it. I ended up yanking one out of my 2009 Civic because I don't really drive it much. They're so much easier to access. All you gotta do is pull the intake out. Yank that clip out, put it in my Type R so I could drive it around, because I spent hours just searching around the engine bay. Where it could have possibly went, I have no clue. Those clips aren't as easy to pull out as they are on Pawin's video. I mean, he makes it look super easy. They weren't that easy. By the time I pulled it out, what had happened was I was using the pliers, I pulled it, and then I think my hand hit something and it made me drop it. If you did lose it, I'm gonna link to another shifter retainer clip that you can use, or if you wanna buy one, they're like $6. I'll throw some links below so you can pick one up, but definitely want to make sure you don't lose those. And the downside is even if you do find it, if you can't reach it, they're made of aluminum, so they're not magnetic, so you can't use one of those cool little magnetic things to retrieve them. The other part is you got to take out the battery, you got to take out the battery tray, you got to take out the intake. I mean, you got to take out the charge pipe for the intercooler just to install shifter cables. So I've gone over how hard it is, but do I regret it? Absolutely not. Biggest improvement that I noticed with the shifter cable bushings is there's no longer guessing if you're in gear or not. I felt like with the stock shifter bushings, and I didn't realize it till I upgraded them, when you go into second or you go into third or whatever gear you're in, with the stock bushings, it was a little bit soft and spongy. And when you got into gear, you were kind of like, am I there? Can I let off the clutch and hit the gas? It just didn't inspire confidence. Although I love the stock shifter on the Civic Type R, this just took it to the next level. This made it feel more like a well-oiled mechanical machine. So now when you shift, there's no guessing if you're in gear. You know you're in gear. That probably made a bigger difference than the short shift knob. But when you combine the shorter shift throw, the shorter shift lever with the Acuity bushings, it made way more of a difference than I ever anticipated. I was just kind of like, okay, let's see where this goes. But I'm definitely impressed with it. Now in the near future, I am gonna see if I can get the Acuity full drop-in shifter unit and we could put that in, and then we could do a comparison between the Poco shift knob, one of the short shifter adapters, and the full drop-in unit, because they're all at different price points. And I'd like to see which one comes out to be like the best bang for the buck. So if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button down below. But until next time, guys, I love you. You guys stay sexy.